Did New England culinarians invent cooking meat in a pot? If not, what makes it a Yankee pot roast? Is it really pot roast if you cook it in a pan? Can you actually cook a whole dinner in a tiny mess kit? And what makes hearty New Englanders special? I try to answer all of these questions and more on this episode of Making a Mess with the Yankee Camper, Yankee Pot Roast. Let's put together the ingredients for our Yankee Pot Roast dinner. It's going to be in two parts. The first part is the beef and gravy, and then the second part will be the garlic mashed potatoes. We'll start with the beef. We have 7 ounces of shredded beef in broth. I've also got 4 ounces of corn niblets. To make the gravy, I'll need 1/4 teaspoon of beef bouillon. This is granular bouillon. 1/4 teaspoon of minced onion. 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. And a dash of black pepper. Combine all of those into a small Loctite plastic bag. I've marked it Yankee Pot Roast Gravy. Just going to roll that up and place that in the bag. To make the garlic mashed potatoes, I'll need 1/3 cup of potato flakes, 1 teaspoon of butter powder. Now I've just switched to this, but I've used it in a couple of trials and I think it works really well. This is commercially available from Amazon. I haven't found it in a local grocery store. If I do, I'll let you know. 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Again, just a dash of black pepper. All these dry ingredients go into a separate Loctite plastic bag, which I've marked garlic mashed potatoes. I'm going to roll those up as well. And just place that right inside my bag also. I've sealed that up, and I'm ready to go have dinner out at the campsite. I'll see you out there, but first, take a look at this. Ask the question, just what is a Yankee? And the answer is primarily witty frugality mixed with some wry sarcasm. And you've just about got the right recipe. Oh, and you must have New England roots. Well, it's possible to have all those characteristics, but not be from around here. You're not a Yankee. That'd be like claiming that gumbo made in Hartford is genuine Creole. It can have the same ingredients, but it's just not Cajun. The author E.B. White, who wrote Stuart Little and Charlotte's Web, took a stab at explaining Yankees this way. To foreigners, a Yankee is an American. To Americans, a Yankee is a Northerner. To Northerners, a Yankee is an Easterner. To Easterners, a Yankee is a New Englander. And to New Englanders, a Yankee is somebody who eats pie for breakfast. So just what makes beef cooked in a pot Yankee pot roast? Well, that's like asking why aren't French fries from France? It has to do with the attitude behind the process and the cut of meat used. If you look up what the least expensive cuts of beef are, you'll find that chuck is near the top of the list. Growing up, we ate a lot of meals with ground beef or hamburger because it was pretty much ground chuck, so therefore priced at the lower end of the scale for meat. Nowadays, the price for ground beef, along with other steak, continues to climb, but relatively speaking, the price is in line with similar purchasing power. Some other meats offer a better value price-wise, so we eat less red meat than we used to. Yankee Pot Roast is similar to the French Boeuf à la mode, but that uses red wine, which I suspect went against puritanical roots in the New England region. Or maybe the cooks just figured water works well enough. In any event, the whole purpose is to convert a tough piece of beef, like chuck roast, into a tender, savory meat by a method known as braising. This basically means cooking in liquid. The cut comes from the upper muscular area of the steer and is flavorful but tough. I looked it up in my old cookbook, and it states that the beef should be seared in fat first to seal it, then slow cooked in water for about 3 hours. But it's not done yet. Add carrots, turnips, and onions and cook for another half an hour, and then add potatoes and cook for an additional 15 minutes. The version I make here is using prepackaged beef and broth. Maybe I'll try making a traditional Yankee pot roast dinner in the future, but it'll take more than a mess kit to fit everything. Let me know in the comments what you think. Looking up recipes online have added red wine back into the list of ingredients, but traditional recipes don't include it. The version I have from almost 90 years ago does, however, include raisins for flavor. Now you know. Let's get our supper going out in the cold at the campsite. Thank you for watching, and I hope you're enjoying this video as much as I enjoy making them. But I don't receive any compensation. However, you could buy me a cup of coffee. I'd really appreciate it. I'll put the link right here. Now, let's get back to the video. Light's getting low here, and it's probably less than 20 degrees out. So I'm going to make my dinner, and then I'm going to take a ride in town. First thing we'll need to do is put together our ingredients. So I've got a package of beef, corn niblets, the mashed potatoes, and pot roast gravy. I'm going to use my Tech Sport mess kit. So we'll take our plate and we'll just set it aside for the moment. We're going to need all of this. So I'll start with my cup, and I'm going to measure out 1/3 of a cup of water. Now, for those of you who are not too good at math, 1/3 of a cup is between 1/4 and 1/2. We'll put that right into our pot. Now, I've kept the pocket rocket in the car all afternoon so that butane doesn't freeze up on me like it did this morning. Let's go ahead and light the stove. And we'll place that water right onto the stove. Put the cover on. That shouldn't take too long to heat up. While that's working, I take my fry pan, open up the corn niblets, and pour that all right into that pan. Give that a mix around. Now we're going to take our gravy, a little hard to work in gloves, and we're going to put that right in there as well. Using our spoon, just stir that around, get that all mixed in. We want all of that cornstarch to get absorbed into the liquid from the corn niblets. That looks like that's about right. Good. I'll open up our beef. I'll place that right in there as well. Be sure to get all of that out. break that up and just set that aside for the moment. That water started to boil. I turn off the stove and I'll remove that water from the heat. Take my potatoes, get those ready. Using my fork, just going to mix that right in. Now you can see those potatoes are just sort of starting to absorb the water. Continue to mix that around with a fork until you get potatoes. It won't take very long. I'm going to finish making these potatoes, and while I do that, why don't you watch this? It's been said that the Farmington, Maine native had big ears. I can't say one way or another. Chester Greenwood died about 25 years before I was born. I've been to Farmington, however. I actually spent a night there. I don't recall hearing about Mr. Greenwood until last year, but camping in the cold got me thinking about him. You see, Chester liked to ice skate, but keeping his large ears from getting frozen became a nuisance. Winters in Maine can be brutal, and in the late 1800s, Gore-Tex was still more than 90 years away from being invented. Young Greenwood tried wrapping his head in a wool scarf, but that just itched, and was almost as distracting as the chilled air. By the time he was 15, he'd had enough. Chester was a Yankee through and through. He had a problem and took to finding a solution with what was on hand. This is known as Yankee ingenuity. He fashioned some farm wire into loops large enough to cover his listening appendages and asked his grandmother to sew on a bit of beaver fur and flannel. These he connected with a bit of wire to cross atop his head. He called them air mufflers, but he didn't invent them. Apparently, the problem was that they refused to lie flat, allowing cold breeze to slip underneath. Examining the problem, he discovered that if they were hinged, it allowed them to fold to reduce them in size to fit in a pocket. But more importantly, the band would keep them in place, and the muffs themselves could pivot to keep his ears covered. By age 18, he had received a patent for his improved air mufflers and had launched a business that, by the time of its peak, employed as many as 1/4 of all Farmington's citizens. Chester Greenwood became known as the father of the modern air muff, and each December the town where he made his fortune holds a day of celebration in his honor. So the next time you're out in the cold and want to put on a set of air muffs, you can thank a Yankee from Maine for improving his air mufflers. It's said that Chester Greenwood had large ears, but in the only photo I could find of him without his trademark ear muffs, he was with his family, and they don't seem remarkably large at all. Now, you know. Why don't we head back to the campsite and finish up making supper? I finished making those potatoes. While they're still warm, I'm just going to place them over by the fire to keep them from getting too cool. Well, those potatoes stay warm over by the fire. Let me show you what this looks like. And I know it's not particularly appetizing, but once it heats up, all that gravy will melt together. Comes out really good. So let's relight our stove. Turn that to low. Place that fry pan right on top of the burner. Now this requires a low heat, and it's sort of slow to make sure that everything gets through, that the tallow in the beef melts and the corn gets heated and that cornstarch starts to thicken. Give it a gentle stir around so that everything gets heated through. Now I know this is shredded beef, and Yankee Pot Roast was one of the cheaper cuts of meat that was available, which needed to be cooked for a long time. This is already obviously shredded for us, but it's also made from a cheaper cut of meat. And that's starting to heat now. And this you're going to want to continue to heat through and stir until that gravy begins to thicken. It won't take too long, but you want to make sure you've got all of that meat heated through and that the corn is all heated through. While that continues to heat, I'm just going to check on my potatoes. Oh, they look fine. You don't have to be overly aggressive in stirring this. Just make sure that everything gets mixed around a little bit. Don't be afraid to adjust the heat if you need to. Oh, this is starting to thicken up very nicely. This is starting to heat through. Just give it a taste here, see how it is. Almost, a little more. It's really hard to heat in the cold weather. I'm going to turn that down to low. I'm going to go get my potatoes. Alright, I've got my potatoes. I'm going to turn this burner off. Oh, those are still all nice and warm. Be careful, this pan is hot. I've got gloves on, so I'm not so concerned about it. I'll put these potatoes right into my plate. Form that up a little bit with my fork. I'll take my beef and corn, put that right over the top of it, just like that. And I'll put this down over here. Yankee pot roast with gravy and corn over garlic mashed potatoes. I'm going to eat my supper before it gets cold, and then I'll clean up my mess. If you've enjoyed this video, just take a moment and give it a thumbs up. Just lets YouTube know that you enjoy the content that I'm putting out. Also, if you're not subscribed to the channel, I'd appreciate it. That really helps. If you have any thoughts about this recipe or anything on my channel, leave a comment in the section below. I read every single one and I try to answer, usually within a couple of days. In the meantime, get outside and thank you for watching. I think I'm going to go sit in the car.